So welcome to session 3. Welcome to the first session of 2 this afternoon. My name is Gemma Hyde. I'm a projects and policy manager at the Town and Country Planning Association, and my work is funded by Sport England and focuses on healthier placemaking. And this is very much a topic, children, young people and the built environment, that's close to my heart. And this session is going to focus on that local authority response. So actually, what is it that local authorities can do across their various roles, across their various powers, to create environments where children and young people develop well? So we're going to hear from 2 authorities. We're going to hear from Leeds City Council and then also from the Greater Cambridge Shared Planning Service. So first of all, both authorities are actually going to talk in reasonably large groups. So first off, we're going to hear from Leeds City Council and then from Cambridge. So without further ado, we can just get into this. So we're going to hear from Jenny Rutherford, Councillor Helen Hayden and Tomas Johnson. So Jenny is Leeds City Council's Play Strategy Officer and works in the Child Friendly Leeds team, which sits within the Children and Families Directorate. Jenny and Karen Peck, who is from Active Leeds, lead on place efficiency work in Leeds, as well as the city's Play Street project. Jenny worked as a primary school teacher for 5 years and continues to champion children's rights through her work. Councillor Helen Hayden is an executive member for Children and Families, encompassing early years, children's social care and education. Helen has been a councillor for 9 years and represents the Temple Newsom ward in the east of the city. Helen also comes from a teaching background and is committed to ensuring every child and young person in Leeds has the best possible start in life and is supported to achieve their full potential. And Tomas is a senior planner working in the Policy and Plans Department. Leeds City Council is in the process of updating its local plan, and Tomas is leading on the topics of transport and connectivity, regeneration, gender-inclusive urban planning, accessibility and child-friendly cities. So Tomas doesn't have a lot to do. Having previously worked in the Council's Development Management Service, Tomas is familiar with the challenges that local planning authorities are faced with when determining planning applications. So over to Jenny, I think, by the looks of it.
Hi everyone, really excited to talk to you about place efficiency, and in particular how place efficiency is working with urban planning to create environments where children can develop well. I'm not going to talk too much about this because Ben and Mike from Lead Ecology will do it properly this afternoon, but just for a bit of context, place efficiency is a process that enables adults to pay greater attention to how their decisions indirectly or directly impact upon children's time, space and permissions for play. What we did in Leeds is kind of very hyper-local research with children's voice right at the heart. And I think how it started and our journey around it is really key to that question of what local authorities can do, because actually we kind of made the decision to do it. It was very much within our powers. So it started when I worked for Active Leeds as a development officer, and in 2020, we had the kind of like a localities approach to working. And that was kind of focusing in on the communities that were most impacted by the effect of poverty. I had a remit around encouraging people to move more. And what I found at that very kind of community level was that lots of conversations were about play. So, you know, there's nothing for my kids to do around here. My kids used to play here, but now they can't. These places don't feel safe to us, and so we can't play there. So I kind of took that kind of insight and tried to influence around kind of upcoming developments, so highways developments, parks developments and things like that. And to be honest, found it a little bit difficult and frustrating work to try and kind of influence, saying like, this is what people are saying, this is what kids are saying. And it just kind of wasn't cutting through. And I think that's not because, that's not because officers that I was working with didn't care about children. They very much did. But play was very much not a priority. And so it kind of got lost a little bit along the way. I worked really closely with LS14 Trust, an organisation based in Seacroft, in the east of the city. And what they developed there was like some really strong kind of local infrastructure around play. So they had the play box, which is basically, they've with Playful Anywhere. The play box is a big corrugated shipping container that you can put in a place. You kind of open the doors out, full of playful resources. And they did fantastic work in a park in Seacroft called Rain Park, where they really helped over a period of years to bridge people back to a community space that was very much considered, just kind of a bit of a void of antisocial behaviour. So they had that kind of local infrastructure there around play that was building. When COVID happened, as happened across the country overnight, these kind of places just closed up, and that hub and that safe space was shut kind of down. There was Playful Anywhere, LS14 Trust, and a team that had a response that was the mini playbox. So it was about delivering much smaller boxes of playful resources to help people to play in their homes. Now, this was really, really key because what happened is they started out at a very small Seacroft level with a funded project. Lots of people started to hear about it across the city, and it ended up being this citywide project where we delivered play to people's homes. And that was really powerful because at that kind of time of COVID where we delivered food, we delivered prescriptions and medicines, we were now delivering play as well. So it kind of really elevated play and kind of legitimized it as an outcome and kind of aligned it with that kind of basic needs. So that was really key. We then went from that into conversations with ludicology, and through the Gets at Leeds local project, which is a Sport England funded project, we commissioned ludicology to work with us in Leeds. So this is what we did. I hope you get a sense of just kind of how robust it is, because that was really key. And it was this knowledge transfer process with ludicology. So we learned how to analyze data properly. We learned how to go and deliver workshops really effectively. And I think this kind of process and structure that we had really helped us to stand up to any kind of scrutiny. And it gave us this real kind of validity as well. So that was key. We had a core implementation team that was kind of made up of active Leeds officers, public health officers, third sector community workers, none of us play workers, but we could all see, we went and did this kind of intense phase of research in schools and out in community groups, and we could all see how this actually, we're not play workers, but it definitely aligns with our kind of our remit and our day-to-day work. And so we went out, we collected this evidence base that was kind of it's really difficult to argue with because it's a lot of time spent listening to children's experience. I'm going to try and do a really quick whistle-top tour of what we found, but we found out loads. So it's but here's kind of 6 or 7 kind of top themes of what we found. So the first things, we didn't ask children about, how do you feel about play and mental health? But actually, we asked children what is play and why is it important? And so many of them talked about mental health. It was striking in the way that they really clearly articulated how play benefited mental health. It was about emotional regulation. There was a lot of kind of play helps me to take a break. So that came through really strongly. And the permissions to play bit was massive. And I think that linked in with kind of community safety. So echoing from what people were saying this morning, there was a lot about people feeling that spaces weren't safe. They would not and could not go to that park or go to that green space because it just didn't feel safe. And there was kind of definitely also, there was sometimes where children would, rate their play satisfaction levels as great, and you dig deeper into kind of that data and you'd see, oh, but they've only listed 6 rooms within their house or 5 rooms that they play. So their only space to play was in their home. So there was kind of this big bit about parents, children, not feeling spaces were safe, and then permissions not being there to play. Streets were really, really valuable spaces to play. There was good streets, where there was space, where there was kind of smooth tarmac, where you could scoot, where friends were, and where permissions were in place to be able to play. And I love the interesting features. And there were bad streets where children talked a lot about cars, parked cars, volume of traffic, busy roads, and things like that stopped children from playing in their streets, and they also stopped them from getting to places to play as well. They also talked a lot about rubbish and about dogs and about scary people, came up quite a lot as well. Nature was massive. We talked about this morning as well. All kids, when they talked about what is play, they talked about nature. And interestingly, even when children had very limited experiences in nature, they intrinsically craved it. To them, it was what play was. It was about getting mucky. It was about climbing trees, even if they had no experience of that. That came through really strongly. And finally, kind of echoing what Tim Gill was talking about this morning, it was about spaces. It was about proximity of spaces to the home. It was about a choice and a variety of spaces that was really key for children. And it was about their capability to get to that space to play as well. And finally, schools, kind of like opportunities to play in school came up massively. When it worked really well, it was great because there was space. My friends are here. Playful adults made a huge difference. And when it wasn't working so well, it was kind of maybe evidenced by this kind of timetable where children did a traffic light system around, the kind of how much freedom they had around ability to play. And it was often that actually playtimes and lunchtimes weren't considered times where they were playing, and after school clubs as well. And finally, friendships. So that was another thing that came through strongly when children talked about what play was and why it was important. Play was the way that they formed friendships. It was the way they sustained friendships. I knew I'd do this. I never. So many piles of paper. And actually what we found was even though friendships were so crucial to play, only 1 in 4 children could play out with their friends, and 6 out of 10 teens kind of hardly ever played out due to constraints put on them as well. We have developed 9 priorities that have come out of our research. I'm sorry, because you probably haven't got time to read them because I'm going to skip through. But they inform our kind of play sufficiency action plan, which we're now driving forward. So, what I wanted to talk about before finishing was the power of play sufficiency. So for us, it has been huge. There's actually, we have consulted before. We're a local authority. We like a little consultation. But nothing has really kind of cut through and hit hard, been hard hitting like play sufficiency actually. And I think it's about having a process and it's about having a structure that is really robust, we're reliable, we stand up to scrutiny. But I think it's also the kind of the language that you're using because, sufficiency, it's about opportunities being sufficient. It's about them being good enough. And local authorities love that. It's kind of, we're not going to go and ask about dream ideas about their play. It's about, is it good enough for children? And I think that reassures people as well at local authorities, let's just make it good enough. And that's been really powerful. And it's great because there's also kind of like a set of sticky language that comes with play sufficiency that you start talking to people and you hear them repeat it back to you. And it's just brilliant. Yeah, but what about the time, space? Yeah, what about the time, the space of play? So that's great. And I think it helped us to talk in a new way that was not just about playgrounds, because actually play sufficiency is very much not that. And when I first kind of went and I spoke to the Parks Department about play sufficiency, there was panic because they were kind of saying, you're going to talk to kids, they're going to want a playground on every corner, we can't do this. And it's the opposite because it's actually it's shifting it away from parks and countryside to a certain extent because it's everybody's responsibility actually play. So they're fully on board with it. They love play sufficiency. It's very, like I kind of said just then, it's an organising principle. So it's not just loads of money into new playgrounds. And that's kind of makes it really attractive to a local authority in kind of current times as well, is it's not a thing that's like, this is going to cost us a lot of money. It's about an approach. It's about a better way of working. And it's about, I am not a highways officer. I am not a planner. So, I can't make the decisions about what is the best way that we tackle this kind of development around play, but it's about that kind of knowledge transfer across the whole system that enables people to say, okay, I look through the lens of a child and I approach this as a highways officer, as a planner, and how can we impact more positively upon children's kind of right to play? So that's been a really powerful thing for us. What we found when we did some focus groups for play sufficiency that was officers kind of internal to the council and across the city, and everybody could really see the benefit of linking with play. And we had some people who were really trying to champion it in teams. kind of across the service. But what was key was that the permission to kind of focus on it and have it as an outcome wasn't really there. It wasn't really in any of our kind of policy strategy, and it kind of wasn't kind of coming from above that was like, play is a legitimate outcome. And so that was really key. And I think getting that political support, which Councillor Hayden will talk about, was massive to us in terms of, yes, it is important that you can spend time on play. It's already kind of helped us to unlock funding. It's helped to unlock it for our kind of third sector community organisations that are doing some really brilliant play projects in the city. And also, it kind of, I think, put a bit of a pressure because it kind of created my role, because my role did not exist. And I think when you kind of develop that evidence base, you develop the evidence base and you see there's a gap. Who is picking up this? And I think that has been key in kind of unlocking funding there. And catalysing partnerships. I think you'll hear from Tom in a moment, and that is evidence Tom kind of works within planning, and they have been this great example of actually sometimes people just need to be told, and they run with it and they can see other opportunities for it. And that was planning. They came to a place efficiency workshop, I shared the research, they could immediately see all the benefit and where they might influence, and they are off and away with it. And I think it's really useful that for kind of, especially like planning, you have an evidence base there, it's tangible, we're running with it. So that's been a really powerful thing. Finally, key recommendations. Don't be afraid to start from nothing. I mean, we didn't have nothing because Councillor Hayden will talk about our child-friendly approach, our Play Streets work that we've done, but we really didn't have much there in terms of play and policy and strategy. So don't be afraid if you're thinking about it. You don't need this kind of massive thing there to start you off. And I think in terms of me, myself as well, I have no expertise in play. And sometimes they're like, we have a play expert in the room. And I'm like, do we? And they mean me. I don't have any expert in play at all. But I think what place efficiency is all about is about having somebody who can build really good relationships across a service, bring people on a journey, show people how it's relevant to them sometimes, and that's kind of all you need. But getting the process right is really important. We couldn't have done it without ludicology. It has been that kind of robust structure that we needed, and that kind of collection of really, really high quality evidence. Harnessing the voice of children has been massive. Somebody mentioned it earlier about just how powerful quotes are, and I think that we've definitely found that in Leeds. We have some really powerful quotes and really kind of rich qualitative data that we use over and over again when we are talking to people, and it is so powerful. And the building an alliance, we started from a very small group of people trying to champion play, sometimes working in isolation a little bit, but we've grown and we've grown and we've grown from there. And just getting everybody, it sounds so simple, just get them to think through the lens of a child, but it's incredible how much that is a powerful thing, because I have lots of times that people that said to me, I just never had thought of that. And, they're a bit embarrassed about it, but it's no, you just maybe haven't thought about it and it's fine. So that's been hugely powerful. Finding a way of measuring is really key. We're starting to do that. We've definitely not got it all right, but we're definitely starting to do that in Leeds. We've got a big kind of citywide survey that now incorporates place efficiency questions. So we're going to have a data set we can build from. And yes, I think you have to measure things in order for them to be a priority, I think. Yes, I'll stop there. Okay, Tom.
So I'm here to talk to you about what the urban planning service can do in a local authority to sort of bring the voice of children and young people along in the urban planning process. So, we all know from great speakers this morning that the built environment is a key determinant of children's development, well-being and life prospects, and those exposed to positive, stimulating environments go on to develop better than those who do not. And so the decisions that we make in urban planning, whether that be as a developer or as a local authority, can have drastic impacts on children and young people. So can I just get a quick show of hands of who in the room has actually either submitted or decided on a planning application in the past? About half? Just under half? Okay, cool. Right, so, right. This is going to change. I'm going to do this then. One of the objectives of the National Planning Policy Framework is to create safe, healthy communities. But both in the NPPF and the Planning Practice Guidance, there's very limited reference to children and young people, except you should build for children and young people, which that's it. It doesn't really tell us how to do that. And so, as an authority, when we're trying to develop our local plan, it's really hard to know what to do. And because of that, we've sort of ended up with places where we've historically planned children out of the city because we've been allocating spaces to other uses such as cars, sprawling housing developments, and the pursuit of economic development. We've also seen the installation of things that discourage play, so no ball game signs and fencing in play areas that this is the place where you play and nowhere else. So it's no wonder that we're seeing a sort of mental and physical health crisis amongst children and young people today. One of the big problems with all that is that the fact that children and young people don't often have a say in many aspects of their life. That could be where they go to school, if they can stay over at a friend's house, where they go on holiday. But that also is true within planning. We don't often consult with children on planning applications. Developers don't often consult with children on planning applications. And that's something that does need to change. So child-friendly urban planning, much like the work of place efficiency, allows us to view our urban spaces from the lens of a child and their caregiver and hope to change how we're viewing those spaces so we can deliver for those people. With the end goal of creating fun, engaging, stimulating places for the sole purpose that they're good for children, and that's it. That should be the reason that we're doing this, that it's good for children and nothing else. This is kind of what happens if we don't do that. So this is a development close to where I live, actually, for 290 homes. In the red circle there, that's a play area, which is actually in the middle of these two developments, but that's what they were provided, this really small fenced-in area. And for 290 homes with, you presume a lot of children, it's not really good enough. And there's actually a little stream that goes right underneath the play area. So when that floods and the little tank underneath that green space floods, the first thing that's going to flood after that is that play area, which we don't want to happen. You shouldn't be putting play areas where you won't build homes. It should be a primary focus of the development. That should be in the middle of that housing estate on the left, and there should be another one on the other housing estate there. It's just, in my opinion, poor planning. So what are we actually doing in the local authority? So we're doing the local plan update. We're doing it in two parts. First one is local plan update 1, really greatly named. That is about climate change, and that's our response to the climate emergency, which we declared in 2019. And then the second one is covering everything else you'd expect to see in a local plan, so housing figures, the need for economic land, transport, that sort of stuff. But until I joined the team, there wasn't any mention of children and young people. So I'm leading on that topic to try and get the voices of children and young people in that plan. And this is kind of reflecting the 2 of the 12 wishes within Leeds City Council. The second wish is that children and young people should have safe spaces to play, hang out and have fun. And the third is that children and young people can express their views, feel heard, and are involved in decisions that affect their life. So I'd like to think that what we're doing with the local plan is trying to fulfil those wishes, almost. But these policies can't be written by me because it's been quite a while since I was a child and or young person. So what I'm doing for that is going out and speaking to young people through consultation. So far, I've spoken to 7 schools, about 250 kids, trying to see what they want from the future of development in their city. So this is, the prime focus of this is actually engaging children about what urban planning is in the first place, because there's no point asking them, how do you want the city to develop, without teaching them about how the city can develop, how we can get from where we are to where we need to be. And so first we had this discussion about the principles of urban planning. We take them through a sort of crash course of what I did for my masters, which was a bit patronising for me because it's really condensed all that down. And then we ask the children what makes a good or a bad place. We get them to have a discussion amongst themselves, hear what those thoughts are from kids, and they can think about a space that's close to home, a place that's near their school, or a place that's on holiday as well. And then to try and make it more fun for kids, I analysed the mushroom kingdom from an urban planning perspective. And the kids really quickly can get involved with this. They understand why the mushroom kingdom will be a better place to live than somewhere else. They know that it's more sustainable to travel through the pipes. They've got beautiful scenery. They've got Peach's Castle for a historic landmark. You've got streets where people walk on, and it all comes together in this well-organised space. And kids really love this. And you can see from this map here as well, we've really covered quite a good amount of the city. We're not just focusing on certain areas, we're trying to get everywhere. And then the final part of that activity is to get them to create their perfect space. And that's kind of what this looks like here. You can see some kids are really enjoying this. Some are really confused, some have got really happy faces, which I had to cover up. So this is what they're actually creating there. You can see the ideas coming forward. And part of this activity is not just to get them to have fun and create spaces, it's to get them to explain the reasons why they're actually doing this. So kids hate writing as well, I found. I could never be a teacher. I don't know why anyone would ever do it. It's a really stressful job because kids just do not listen. So when I'm going in and explaining to them, you need to explain why you've put a playground next to a house, why you've put it next to a school. And they can really switch on and really understand why they're doing these things. So, you know, for example, we planted trees so there's clean air. We want offices, schools and retirement homes. There's a close mix of generations. They want to see their family. They don't want them to be spread out all over the city. They want barriers and cycle paths to feel safe. They want a big park in the middle which is accessible for everyone. So they're really switched on with all these ideas. And then what I'm hoping to do with all that, you know, research and evidence is to turn it into some principles of a child-friendly city in Leeds. Because when we go to examination with this policy, the examiner will sit and say, you've got some really great research and evidence about what is good for children, but I don't, you know, that's really great and it pulls on my heartstrings, but there's no local evidence to support that. And that's what we've tried to do here, is to get that. So when we present this, they can go, great, this is the Leeds-based approach. And so these are what's already coming out of the schools I've spoken to. So kids want local access to daily needs. They want streets where cars don't dominate. They want to be close to friends and family. They want to feel safe to exercise their independent mobility. And the local plan already tries to achieve those things anyway, but this is just another way to really try and secure that. So when a development comes forward, like, I'm going to go back, this one, when that comes, if that came forward when we had this policy, we could say to the developer, well, the principles of a child-friendly city are X, Y, Z, so you need to do that in your scheme to be considered a child-friendly development. And that's kind of what we think will be the sort of back and forth with the developer, that we're asking them to create this child-friendly development, and they get to say to people, you know, prospective residents of this site, that we've got a really child-friendly development, which, you know, will be beneficial to the developer. Just quickly go back. And then finally, I can't ever do a presentation about children without talking about play, because Jenny will kill me. So when we talk about play and recreation here, this is the sort of things that have come from the Scottish National Planning Framework. So we're yet to sort of have that real consultation with children and young people about play from an urban planning perspective, but this is my visioning of what I'd like that to look like. And we're going to be trying to do some consultation over the coming months to really get some wider views about play as well, that is really focus on the urban planning element and combine that with the work that Jenny's already done, and it'll hopefully get these policies forward as well. Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Helen Hayden, and I get to be the play champion for Leeds. What a title. And I get that because of these remarkable people that work for Leeds City Council and work for Leeds and for our children and young people. And we are blessed in Leeds with the quality, as you can see, of our officers and throughout all the different directorates. And that's what I'm here to talk about today, and that's Team Leeds. And that it's not just children and families, which I, at the moment, get to be exec member for, but it's across all the directorates. So I first came to talk about and to be involved in place efficiency just over a year ago, when as exec member for sustainable development and infrastructure. So I was the exec member for planning, highways and transportation, and city development, regeneration, and I loved it. It was fantastic, and because we have that cross-directorate approach, we started to talk about, as Tomas and Jenny both mentioned, the fact that we wanted to put play into our local plan, and so there was workshops and training, and what we have now is the place efficiency and me as a play champion. But I want to take us back to how this kind of came about. So 2012, Queen Elizabeth II launched Child Friendly Leeds. And it was because we have these pillars that we want to be, these ambitions, that we want to be the best city in the UK. I actually think we are. And I love Birmingham. I spent the 3 happiest years of my life in Birmingham. So I love Brum. I love Birmingham University. It was fantastic. Not a patch on Leeds. So, we want to, and that includes those 3 pillars, our health and well-being, inclusive growth, and the climate emergency. Now, when you come to tackle all those three things, you have to start with children. And we've heard some very scary things, and I'm going to go look at my children in a whole different light now that I've shortened their, whatever that thing was in their brain, by living in an urban environment when I was pregnant with them. But we have to start with children because the health and well-being, but it's also about their families as well and their communities, because children do not live in isolation, they do not drive, and they do not live by themselves. So, 10 years later, when we're celebrating the 10-year anniversary, over 3 years, we talked to 80,000 children in Leeds. I think that must be a first, that sheer number of children, and that's where the 12 wishes came from. As Jenny said, we didn't start from nowhere in terms of play sufficiency, because the second wish was that safe place to play. But we didn't start from nowhere, because over that 10 years, quite early on, we developed the Play Street strategy. I first came from parents in Bristol who had set this up, and, you know, you kind of always beg and borrow and steal other people's idea. Again, that was across directorates. So Play Streets wouldn't happen if we didn't have a highways officer. It was Gary, wasn't it, Jenny? That basically ignored other streets when he had a Play Street and resurfaced a street that wanted to be a play street. Now we've got that in policy. Now we've got permission for fantastic highways officers like Gary to go and say, I'm going to make that suitable to be a play street, and you're not going to argue with me and say that street needs, because potholes are damaging my cars, because we've now got a play sufficiency strategy that says that streets and good streets are really valuable. I personally saw the huge value, and it's low cost as well. I know resurfacing a street, but they have to be done anyway. And you get a wheelie bin full of, you know, things to play with. And you get a big child-friendly Leeds sticker on the side of the wheelie bin. And that's what happens when a play street happens. The kids, parents, whoever strong enough, wheels the wheelie bins into the streets, and that closes off. You don't need barriers. You don't need a highways officer to come out. You do it yourself. So I'm going to take you back to 2016. Not a great time in my life. My children were 6 and 4. And I was getting divorced, but this is not going to be a therapy session, don't worry. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made. And it was, but I was looking at it was first day of the summer holidays. I had 2 children, no money, and I'd been a counsellor for a year. And I was looking at 6 weeks of going, oh, what am I going to do with my kids? And I've got to work, and I've got, you know, like, this is going to be a nightmare. So I did what most middle-aged, middle-class parents do, and I took them to the library. And then we came back, and I thought, right, what am I going to do with the day? And I came back, and I'd moved into my grandparents' house, where they moved in 1972, and my parents owned it, and I moved into that house, and so they used to have street parties and things in the 70s. I remember them. I won the hat competition at the Queen's Golden Jubilee, or whatever, Silver Jubilee, and I drove in and I parked my car in the back, and the kids went, I want to go there. I want to play out. And there were these kids playing on the back street. It was a row of Victorian terraces, Our back gardens came onto a back street that Gary had resurfaced, much to my sister-in-law's chagrin, because she'd lived there for 5 years and it had terrible potholes. So, and my kids went and played. They were too young for me to like completely ignore the fact that they might run onto the main road opposite. But I could be in the garden. I could, sit in a chair and have a cup of tea or whatever, and they played with the friends. That came about because there was quite a few families with kids similar ages, and Laura, one of the neighbours, applied to Leeds City Council to be a play street. What happened over the next couple of years is that she stopped applying for the official dates. The only people who drove down that back street were parking their cars in their garage. So now, if the kids are playing football or whatever they're playing on the street, they're all older now, and I've moved around the corner. But they just wheel out those wheelie bins, and none of the neighbours mind. They just, if they want to get the car through, they wheel the wheelie bins to the side. But what that did in terms of the community was that because when you had little ones, you had to go and sit outside, we all got talking to each other. We started to have street parties. And they were very, very good street parties. And at one point, Cllr, another of my neighbours, got a band that travels around Leeds, and we had a band playing and all that. And that came from play streets. And then COVID happened, and horrendous things happened in all our lives. And I would go out, and you would see my neighbours waving, and they'd left ice creams at the bottom of the garden for the kids when we were going through a particularly hard time. That all came about because of play streets. Very low cost, very, very easy to implement, and that is a really, really powerful way of not just getting kids playing and moving and happy and all those benefits that we've heard from this morning, but also their parents and the older people. People came to that those street parties. They were proper street parties. We had people in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and people from surrounding streets, and all getting together as communities. It was like I did put on Facebook hashtag 1980s childhood. When but going on to the political side and having that political approach. So it's December, I'm going to take you now to December 2023. And the place sufficiency paper assessment was being taken to exec board. And my colleague, I was still in charge of highways and planning and things, and my colleague, Councillor Fiona Venner, was going to be the new play champion, and it was really positive paper, and we didn't have to spend any money on it, and it wasn't because local authority budgets are a nightmare. And we went to exec board, and we were all like, oh, this will be a paper that we can all get behind and all be positive about. And the opposition member called it a vanity project. What are you doing when we've got all these problems, blah, 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 and you're going to have and we all sat there stunned, and we have a little WhatsApp group, and we were like, what's going on in the WhatsApp group? And we could not believe it. We were stunned. It came up at full council. We've now got a play champion when there's all... It's not costing us anything. She's not going to stop being exec member for children and families and just be full-time play champion. We could not understand. But what it did, and the opposition needed something to... I don't know, beat us with. Funny they chose this. But what it did was it galvanised the whole city. Across the board, and to the West Yorkshire Mayor, the fabulous Tracy Braben, it galvanised anyone to say, actually, what Leeds is doing, and nationally as well, what Leeds is doing, this is fantastic, this is amazing. It doesn't cost any money, and, it's going to have real positive effects. So it actually massively backfired, but having that political play, and, excuse the pun, but it's kind of galvanised everyone and given the whole council, but the whole city, permission to say, this is really important, our children and young people are really important. Yep, I'm good. So I'm really, really sorry. So we've talked about everything else. We also did a play enabling grant that I want to talk to, but only 36,000, but that community groups can go into. And just be ambitious. Put your flak jacket on and go out there and get shot at, because our kids deserve it, and they need us all to be warriors, as Anne said this morning. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, so if I could invite Bonnie and Heather to come up. So Dr. Bonnie Kwok is a principal urban designer and the planning youth engagement lead for the Greater Cambridge Shared Planning Service. Bonnie leads the Greater Cambridge Youth Engagement Service called YES, which is an award-winning service that aims to ensure children and young people have genuine input into the town planning and urban design process at strategic and delivery stages. Bonnie is also a qualified workplace coach and enjoys mentoring young people and supporting them with their career development. And Heather is Deputy Director of Planning and Building Quality. Heather joined Cambridge City Council in 2017 and has extensive experience of leading shared services, especially through transformations and changes. Heather has worked in local government across England and Wales, and her interests include the creation of social value by early strategic interventions in the built environment and working to be at the forefront of innovation in planning in Greater Cambridge. So I shall hand over to you.
So I'm not going to repeat what's just been said. I really like the point of being a play champion. I think I'm a youth engagement champion, but actually I quite like play champion, so I might just steal that. So we've talked about my experience in the built environment. I've also worked in social housing and in further education, as well as building control and more recently in planning. So I joined the shared service, Greater Cambridge Shared Planning in 2022. It's a combined of South Cambridgeshire District Council and Cambridge City Council. Anybody who works in a shared service will know the tortuous journey that we travel on, but we're coming out of that journey now, so that's fantastic. When I joined, it was very much looking at the service and how we could make it more commercialised and through partnership working, but making sure that we still kept true to our social value, and that's really important for me. As I said, I became a champion of the youth work. I heard about the great work our Yes team were doing. I'm just going to hand over to Bonnie now so she can start that conversation off. She's ably leading our Yes team. So Bonnie, perhaps you'd like to come up.
Thank you, Heather. So here's the context for Yes. So about 10 years ago, I was working as a planning officer in the DM team. At the same time, I was doing a part-time PhD, and I was focusing on the subject of youth engagement and urban design. And just like our colleagues this morning, I was really interested in finding the links between children, young people, and access to outdoor spaces. So I look at the works of Colin Ward, Roger Hart, Hugh Matthews, and I just found that really fascinating. So I developed a framework, and it's a simple framework, but based on a lot of research. And I spoke to my team leader, John Kwok, at the time. I said, can I go to the local primary schools and ask children for their ideas on a play space for a small housing scheme in Falmere, which is a little village in South Cambridgeshire. And my team leader, John, was fantastic. He said, yeah, go and do it. And so I went and spoke to a small group of children, tested my framework, and it was really effective. And then fast forward another few years, I fine-tuned the framework and I passed my PhD. I was really pleased. And I was just really keen to apply my skills and knowledge. And so then in 2022, when Heather was looking at commercialization and also how best to deliver social value and create social impact, I said to Heather, why don't we formalize Yes? So it's a proper proposition, it's a proper service that we can advertise on the council website. And so with Heather's support and also the support from our planning portfolio holder, Councillor Dr. Jimmy Hawkins and Councillor Katie Thornborough, I was given the resources to run Yes, Youth Engagement Service. So now we're a strong team. I have Tom Davis, who's up there filming us and want to share this knowledge with the wider world. Tom is the winner of the 2023 Thorndon Education Trust Best Youth Engagement Practitioner, and also Maxine Ross, who's there, sitting there supporting us, but also a planning apprentice, Shahida and Pierre, who's also in the audience, helping me with Yes. So I just want to thank everyone here for your support, for coming here and learn about our work, but I'm also here to learn from you, and later on Gemma will sort of share some information about getting some feedback. So this is a little bit background of Yes.
So, as Bonnie has said, we are an award-winning service. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through all the awards that we've won. We do a lot of youth engagement workshops, and we make sure that we include other services as well, so housing, open spaces, communities, etc. And we're expanding it to include other functions across the council, which makes it more, better value for us. So we're incorporating public art into our youth engagement service as well now. We offer work experience programs, these are very practical. So we offer shadowing, master planning, and meeting with members, which is really a really good experience for young people. So they get to know what members' job roles are as well. We also have an apprentice academy, which Bonnie has just mentioned. We've got a couple of apprentices here today. We set that up last year, and that's really been a positive impact on our recruitment and retention. But they also help to support the YES team, which is fantastic. And then we do outreach projects such as talks as today. So just to give a bit of context for youth engagement for us, basically international, obviously you can see there, but I want to talk about the Brundtland report and the fact that the decisions we make today impact on the young people for the future. So that's why it's so important that we ask for their views and we get them involved. I really love working with young people. You'll see me on the photograph there at one of the engagement workshops. It's a fantastic experience if you get that opportunity. So obviously it fits in with national policies, MPPF, and also it fits in with our corporate policies. So our own corporate objectives and the statement of community involvement. It has a lot of benefits. Bonnie's mentioned social value and impact. That's really important. But also for developers, particularly on those controversial proposals where sites might have been allowed on appeal, it's a really good way to engage with the communities and the young people in those sites that may be in the greenbelt or conservation areas or affected by the 5-year land supply. Just to mention the statement of community involvement, I think picking up what Leeds have said, we're trying to bring this into policy. So when we updated our community involvement statement in March of this year, it is a requirement to update it, obviously. We're very much clear that we wanted to include youth engagement as part of that. So it's expressly written in our statement of community involvement. We are very, very fortunate that both our lead members are extremely supportive and are very hands-on and interactive and come along to a lot of our workshops. You'll see them in the photograph there. So Councillors Katie Thornborough and Councillor Dr. Toomey Hawkins. And that's really critical for us to ensure that they, continue to support the service. And I think what I found with the youth engagement is the fact that it reaches quite diverse groups as well, and that's fantastic, and an opportunity that we need to continue to develop. I'm just going to briefly mention the case for Cambridge. As you know, Cambridge is very topical at the moment. There's the Secretary of State, Michael Gove, the current Secretary of State, with our director, Stephen Kelly, when he was in Cambridge. There's a recognition of the importance of Cambridge and the expansion of the life science sectors, for the national economy, so bringing in inward investment. Just to put it into context, our local plan, our emerging local plan up until 2040 has identified a need of 55,000 new homes, and the case for Cambridge is talking about 150,000 new homes. So we do have to manage that, and we're working with DLAC and Homes England to talk that through. We've raised some of the issues, and our ask of government was, well, we have some major problems in Cambridge and the area, the surrounding area, particularly around water scarcity and about transport. So are you able to help us? And they are, committed to helping us with those. And then we've also put ourselves forward to be a front runner in the new local plan process. It is important for us to ensure that we've got a robust local plan in place. So talking about the framework, there's the framework identified there. I think one of the things that my personal belief is in the health and well-being of young people. I was the president for local authority building control member group for a year, and I had a charity called Young Minds, and that really highlighted to me how important mental health is for young people, and we're responsible. We need to make sure that we manage their mental health and well-being. So that's sort of led me to my support of the youth engagement service and the framework that we've got here. But we do want to emphasise it needs to be fun. We want to make it fun, and we try and make it fun. You'll see we've got a mascot. So it's important that we make it fun for young people, and we also make sure that it's very inclusive. So the timings of when we do our workshops, we make sure that that they are at appropriate times for everybody to be included. And it all fits in with the national curriculum. So head teachers find it really fantastic as well. I just want to talk a little briefly about the North Cambridge Design Code. So we are on the Pathfinder programme. We've had money from government for the Design Code to develop a Design Code, and we're in the process of doing that. But we very much wanted to include our Yes service as part of that. So you will see from the photograph there, there was in January 24, that Grove School, we did a workshop there, and we drew out their ideas, and they were fed into the North Cambridge Design Code. So that's how powerful using something like the Yes group can be to help young people have a say in what their community is going to look like. And I just want to, hang on, and I just want to thank Pollard, Tomas, Edwards. They've been really great partner in this as well, architects firm, they've been a partner in this and allowed it to happen. So the North Cambridge Design Code there covers those three areas. They're one of the most deprived areas in Cambridge. So, and it's really important that we design neighbourhoods or have codes that, the people who live there are really on board with. And it includes sustainability and road networks, transport, etc. But what was really, really important for me was basically the emerging results. So when we did the work with the children, the emerging results was number 2 were buildings. And that was a bit of a surprise for me. I didn't think that children would necessarily think that buildings were important in their area, but they did. So, and number 1 was trees. And, as we all know, trees has more, prominence now in the NPPPF. So, maybe youth engagement will in the future as well. And then I just wanted to show you some of the sort of drawings that our young people did when they took part in the workshops. I think this is fantastic to illustrate, what young people really do think. We've got a place for nature there, a place for people to relax, but talk to each other when they're tired. And looking at the buildings one there, referencing what I've said earlier. So, we've got animal insect shelters, we've got ponds, parks, but also shops and more shops. So it is really, really important that we ask young people what they want in their areas. And then I think in the number 5, sustainability, I really like the forest of trees for animals to live in. So we're not talking about 1 or 2 trees strategically placed here. We're talking about, really, really prominent areas. I think we've missed a slide. Okay, no worries. I shall pass on to Bonnie. We did have a slide, I think, was around about how we collected the data. So it was really important that we used industry experts to collate the data and transfer that into the results for us, which are then fed into the design code. So I'm going to hand over to Bonnie now, who's going to take you through some case studies. Thank you.
So Heather's just talked about, at a strategic level, how do we engage children and young people? Now, with lots of planners in the room, I'm going to talk about something about DM. So in development management terms, how do we engage children and young people in the planning process? So here's one example. In January last year, we were working with developers Breakthrough, planning agents Sphere 25, architects, Cambridge-based architects, Fielden and Morton, and Danish architects, Hennish and Larsen, on this really prominent lab building in St. John's Innovation Park. As you can see on the map, we're really keen to get children to have an input. So we went to Shirley Primary School, It's a school that's located about 25 minutes walk from the site. And the reason we chose Shirley Primary School was because with the key stage 2 students, over 50% of them were pupil premium students, meaning they're from disadvantaged backgrounds. And in line with TCPA, Ebenezer Howard's Garden City Principles, we really wanted to give children the opportunity to have a say. That social opportunity is really important. So we went to the school and we ran our typical Yes workshop. So as you can see here on the slide, this is what a typical Yes workshop will look like. And basically, it's a 2-part workshop into 2 separate days, 2 days apart normally. So normally we include a careers talk. And so this is a booklet that we'll give to all the children, and it talks about the different career options in the built and natural environment, and the GCSE subjects, A-level subjects that you need to study if you want to pursue a career in these areas. We also do a tour, so sometimes it's a virtual tour if it's a bit further away from the site, but most of the time is an actual walkabout, because we really want the children to benefit from outdoor learning, as suggested by all our colleagues this morning about the, in order to develop well, you need to make sure children have plenty of opportunities for outdoor play and outdoor exploration. So apart from that, we also teach the children some basics about urban design principles and town planning, so they understand, because these are not normally the subjects that they'll get to learn at Key Stage 2 with the national curriculum, but they do align with several subjects such as geography, design and technology, and so forth. Place knowledge is really important, so this is youth engagement research terms, so we were really interested in understanding children's place knowledge, place feelings, but also home range, as suggested by colleagues this morning. So part of our aim is to collect data so we can do research to help improve outcome. And there's also a really fun quiz in the workshop, and it's called Childhood Quiz. I don't know whether you've heard of it, but Google it. Childhood Quiz is really fun. And all the children can engage. And basically, we run the childhood quiz towards the end of the day just to test the children to make sure that they are learning something useful from us and to help us evaluate our work. The exciting part is the design exercise. So we ask the children to design something for the site, and this is secured by Section 106 of planning conditions. So there's genuine input, and I'm going to show you some really nice examples. Feedback is important, so we, based on the idea of PDSA, plan, do, study, act, we continue to look for areas for improvement. Obviously, it's important to share results. So after the first workshop, in the second workshop, like what Heather's just shown in terms of the emerging results of the North Cambridge Design Code, we always share the survey results in terms of children's preferences for facilities in new developments, be it housing development or retail development or business development. And then there's always an art exhibition to showcase children's work and to celebrate the success. This is the important part. In part 2 of the workshop, in the awards ceremony, we invite the parents, grandparents, guardians, counsellors to attend. So that is a good way to engage children and young people, but also the adults in the planning process. Because normally with public consultation, you get a few posters in village parish halls, and they tend to be attended by people who have time, which they tend to be retired people. So that's a good way to get adults to come and look at the children's work, but also find out more about the planning applications. So this is the Vitram site. As you can see, it was a proposal, but now approved, thanks to our really strong youth engagement input. So to the south of the site, you can see is a large public open space in St. John's Innovation Park. And through negotiation with the developers, they've agreed to offer that to the public, but also they really want us to work with Shirley School students to have a genuine input. So we asked the children to design some street furniture. So we decided that it would be good to have benches and picnic tables because they're quick to deliver. Because our experience suggests that normally with a bigger infrastructure, it takes years to deliver, and we want to see results at this stage. So that's what we did. As you can see in the picture, developers and planning agents they were really enjoying it as well. So it's not just the children learning from us, adults were learning from the children as well. Okay, so this is a survey form which shows at the same workshop, we involve children in the plan making process. So apart from DM, plan making is really important as well. So as we are moving forward with our North East Cambridge Area Action Plan, which is NECAP, we're really keen to understand from the children what they want in this new Area Action Plan. So the area is in North East Cambridge. We have the vision to deliver over 80,000 homes and 50,000 jobs. So through working closely with the children, it's a really simple questionnaire, as you can see. We managed to find out the current living conditions. As you can see from the image on the top left-hand side, over 80% of the children wanted to live in houses as opposed to flats. But if you look at the image in the middle, actually, a lot of them don't mind. Nearly 40% of them don't mind multi-story buildings, which was surprising. So then we drew further into this by having some follow-up surveys with the children, and they said that they actually don't mind living in flats as long as they're really good, well-designed. And the reason for the results of the first survey was because the current living conditions are not that great. Some of them are below space standards. So this means as we move forward with our NECAP, we need to make sure that all the new dwellings would exceed the national space standards, and also with flats, they all have access to private amenity spaces. The chart below here shows children's preferences for architectural types. So as you can see, it's quite balanced. So I think this reinforces the need to have a mixed and varied housing typology as we move forward. So here are some of the key takeaways. What's been working really well for Yes is that the process has been fantastic. We have strong support from senior management, but also at political level, just like Leeds. So we're quite fortunate in having that. We've been able to support children with the personal development, but also academic achievements. And this is the feedback we receive from the head teachers. We've been able to build trust and consensus with the children and their parents, and this is evident in the really good turnout at our public consultation in the school. The use of technology has been well. Childhood Quiz is really easy to use. It's an online platform, but also we just use spreadsheet or Word document. So anybody can do it. It's really easy to do. In terms of areas for further improvement, I think better resources, because now Yes is providing services nationally, because we're just a really trusted brand and really effective in what we do. So I'm looking for more resources, and we're looking at through matrix management, getting resources from Planning Apprentice. Also having a stronger focus on children's mental health and well-being, very much in line with Garden City principles. So we're looking to incorporate more outdoor learning opportunities. And finally, at the national level, is to ensure the next NPPF hopefully will have a stronger stance on youth engagement, because currently that's absent. And as we move forward with the Greater Cambridge Local Plan, Hayden team is going to reinforce the idea of youth engagement. And here are the 6 key points of successful youth engagement from the Yes perspective. Early engagement is key, having enough resources, having a structural approach. So in the case of Yes, it's a structured 2-day workshops. Partnership working is really important. Treat children as equal partners, having a project aim, and in our case, it's deliverables. Feedback at all levels and on a continuous basis. And finally, it's about celebrating success and be a reflective practitioner. Thank you.
Okay, so we don't have long, but we will try and take a few questions.
Any tips for actually, in a short 13-week timescale for the planning applications, actually trying to get youth engagement, because it's something that's quite impossible at the moment?
That's a really good question, because at the moment, with larger developments in Greater Cambridge, we tend to use a PPA, which frees up us from that 13-week consultation period. And 13-week, I think, is a restriction. So I would suggest and encourage the use of PPA. But if you want to do something quick, I think it's about making sure that at the pre-app stage, youth engagement is embedded at an early stage, like I said. So that 13-week really is after planning submission has been done. So pre-app is really important. And we have some booklets outside which you can take, which contains our youth engagement framework. It's free for you to take home, and perhaps you can have a look at the youth engagement and get some ideas from us.
I would also just say that it's good to have good relationships with the schools before those applications come in, so that you can send stuff to the schools when they come in as well, rather than having to go in. This is what we're finding with these consultations we're doing, that the schools are inviting us to go back, even next year, to talk to them about urban planning. So that shows that relationship's being built already. So if you do that work beforehand, when they come in, you can speed up that process, hopefully.
I'd just like to emphasise what Bonnie was saying and Thomas about the pre-application stage. That's when you need to do your consultation, and having big developments, there should be enough running, because the current government at the moment is going to ask for 8 weeks for decisions to be made, so it's going to get even shorter than 13 weeks. So really emphasise this pre-app.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. We're developing 3 levels to our Yes service. So one is direct delivery, which we've talked about today, but we do have 2 other levels as well, which, basically can be downloadable or a toolkit. So we're trying to encourage people to do it outside of that, formal process period, because as we all know, developments are in train for many, many years. So we need to get them as early as possible to be engaging.
When you engage with children and young people, potentially there is no filter, and potentially you get quite an honest response. How are you dealing with issues that pop up which are not comfortable, which are not necessarily the happy issues that, everybody wants a better place? What if you actually uncover that maybe the children are having some real issues and, in that area? Or how are you dealing with the sort of the uncomfortable side of youth engagement?
I can answer a quick one about that, not all of them. One thing that all the kids are saying in all the schools is they don't like the government, they don't want a government in their perfect place, which as an authority you kind of go, okay. But it's about inferring what children mean by that and having those conversations. When they say no government, what do they mean? It's because they feel they don't really have a voice in that. So I know that you might be referring to different things that might come up in these conversations, but it's about trying to take what they say and working out a solution of what you can influence, because we have to acknowledge that planning can't solve everything, unfortunately. Wish it could, but it can't. So it's understanding how you can interpret what they're saying to make it about planning sometimes.
I think what was really important for us is that in this sort of last example that Bonnie was talking about, when we were getting information of why children didn't want to live in flats and wanted to live in houses, it was about the quality. So that is really, really important. And what we're trying to do in Greater Cambridge is go above and beyond policy. And I think our colleagues in Leeds mentioned the same. Why do you need a policy? You should be able to push to go above and beyond. And our members are very, helpful and supportive in us trying to achieve that.
I think what we found, we researched in areas that were kind of most impacted by the effects of poverty. And one of the things that when we spoke to children about what is not play, that came back as quite shocking, because it was kind of, quite violent kind of things that were coming back about, some kids probably seeing things, and other times like a narrative of that place and that kind of narrative of the story of that place and what it was. So we definitely came into contact with lots of things that were kind of uncomfortable. I think the benefits of place efficiency is that, that just doesn't sit just on me. So it's about engaging all the officers, the police, and kind of everybody across the system to try and kind of catch some of that. And once you have that, and that is really powerful to kind of say, this is what the kids are saying. So I think that is part of it. And for us in Leeds, it was very much grassroots and up, which has been great, because we've been ahead of the curve a little bit. It's not a statutory requirement for us, and we're kind of shaping it as we go. And we've had third sector and those organisations that are like that support network for a lot of people who have been involved. And so I think that has been another really powerful thing that's just helped us to kind of connect the dots with it as well.
If we could just say thank you to our panel for this session.